waiting a very, very long time for necessary operations. They pointed out the failure to listen to advocacy groups and the failure to meet with them by Simon Harris. What is clear is that just hundreds and hundreds of children have been failed in different ways by CHI, and there's a kind of cruel, bitter irony in the fact that while children like Harvey were waiting for necessary operations, other children were being given unnecessary operations, in particular hip dysplasia operations, and I've been working with the hip dysplasia advocacy group in relation to that, where it seems, or certainly quite possibly, a motive for this may well have been money, as surgeons were getting significant amounts of money for doing these surgeries, and where the advocacy group met with CHI last Thursday, where unfortunately they learned that the audit that was previously promised to start in September is now going to start in January, where there was previously a commitment that it would take 6 months. They're now being told, kind of hopefully it will take 6 months, but we can't absolutely guarantee that. And there isn't full clarity yet on the method that will be used to determine whether operations were necessary or unnecessary. And in all of that, for us, the central thing to say is that the advocacy group, the parents, the families, they have to be at the heart of this. They have to be happy with the process of it. Otherwise, it is simply not acceptable. So they have to sign off with their own medical experts on what method is used, and they have to sign off on who is included in it. It needs to go back to include every possible child who was affected. And in terms of the wider crisis, like what is needed is a public inquiry into just how CHI managed to fail so many children over such a period of time, and to try to learn the lessons that to ensure that it doesn't continue to happen into the future. The other issue I want to speak about briefly is obviously the presidential elections are very much heating up now. We had a very positive campaign meeting last night of the Catherine Connolly campaign, where hundreds of activists were present from across the country. That flows off the back of an online rally a couple of weeks ago, where there was about 1,000 people present in a massive online rally. Like literally thousands of people are signing up to join Catherine Connolly's campaign. We think it's hugely exciting. We think she has the real prospect of winning, and fundamentally this election is going to be about which direction we want the country to go in. Do we want the government to get away with abandoning all that is left of neutrality and ripping up the triple lock, or do we want to defend neutrality and the triple lock? Do we want to have a government which says some correct things in relation to Palestine, but then continues with the complicity in terms of the central bank authorisation of the bonds, in terms of trying to water down the Occupied Territories Bill, in terms of the overflights that continue to happen? Do we want a government that is, very consciously seeking to accelerate the rise of rents, or a government that puts the interests of renters, of homeless people, of people who are trying to buy a house first? So it's about which direction the country is going in, and fundamentally I think, and it was reflected in comments reported by some Fine Gael TDs, it is going to become an opportunity for people to pass judgment on this government and on the political establishment, because I think it looks likely that it's going to be a straight fight between Catherine Connolly on the one hand and representatives of the political establishment on the other hand. It's very positive that other parties of the left have also come together. We're working well together in support of Catherine Connolly. We're obviously anxiously, awaiting the outcome of Sinn Féin's deliberations. I think there's certainly lots of grassroots Sinn Féin members who are very supportive of Catherine Connolly, and of course, we respect Sinn Féin's own internal processes, but we're certainly hoping that they make the decision to support Catherine Connolly. We think that will be a real boost, and we think this is a winnable campaign. It'll be winnable on the basis of mobilising people power. It'll be winnable on the basis of having thousands and thousands of activists in constituencies right across the country, knocking on doors, talking to people, fundraising from below, and all the indications is that we should be able to achieve that.
Just with regard to Harvey Morrison, his parents on Twitter have requested that this Saturday not become a circus and that it's about him and not politics. What would your response be to that?
Yes, absolutely. So we of course completely respect in every way the wishes of Stephen and Gillian. I think this is political. It's not partly political. It's political in terms of the way that the state, the way that CHI, and the way the government has failed. Failed Harvey tragically, but has failed also hundreds of other children. So I think it's important just for anyone. So many people. Harvey touched so many people. Obviously went viral on social media multiple times when he was alive. Again, I mean, hashtags in relation to Harvey have been trending over the past couple of weeks. So literally millions of people have been touched by Harvey, and what we need is for as many of those people to come out as possible. Like, the support on social media and so on is all, I think, very, very welcome by the family, but the best way people could support is by turning out on Saturday and by making it a massive protest that becomes very difficult for the government to ignore.
And then just from me, with regard to the presidency, you really think Catherine Connolly can do this? Do you think there's anyone else, Mary Lou or anyone, if they came into the field, do you really think she can take on the might of whoever Fine Gael choose, which looks like Heather Humphreys?
Yes, I really think Catherine can win. I think it's going to be a very close election. I don't think one candidate is likely to just walk away with it. I think it's going to be very, very close. If you look at the vote for Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael in this country, that's in the kind of low 40s. So that's kind of a base that political establishment is starting from. They can go down from that, or they can go up from that. And if you combine together the votes of Sinn Féin, Social Democrats, Labour, People for Profit, Solidarity, Left Independents, then you're into a kind of similar ballpark. And I do think that's what this election is going to come down to. I definitely wouldn't underestimate Heather Humphreys as a candidate, but I do think it will be difficult for her to extricate herself from being connected to the cruel decisions of Fine Gael, including her own attempted imposition of an I. Daniel Blake style system for disabled people in this country. And I think minds will focus on the current actions of the government and the actions of governments that she was involved in. So I think it's doable, and I think all the opinion polls back that up. I mean, Catherine is consistently a close second behind, in one poll behind Heather Humphreys, I think by 1%. In other poll previously, before Mairead McGuinness withdrew, she was a couple of points behind, but very, very close. And a number of those polls did poll for Mary Lou McDonald as well, when presumably you'd expect the vast majority, if Mary Lou McDonald was not to run, the vast majority of those votes would go leftward. Look, if Mary Lou McDonald runs, I think she'll be a credible candidate. I think all the polls that have polled Mary Lou and Catherine have had Catherine ahead, not ahead by a whole lot, but have had Catherine ahead. Obviously that's a decision that Mary Lou and Sinn Féin are going to weigh up. So certainly she'd be a very, very credible candidate with a chance. But I do think the polls confirm that Catherine is the best positioned progressive left candidate who has the best chance of stopping Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, probably Fine Gael, taking back or Sunnig Throne.
Well, you said there that amongst Sinn Féin grassroots members, the support is more leaning towards Catherine Connolly. Have you kind of any messaging or any kind of feeling from senior Sinn Féin members about where they're leaning towards? Because I understand that an internal poll of Sinn Féin gave a majority vote towards supporting back in Catherine Connolly. And if Sinn Féin does put forward their candidate, that will obviously split the left vote. So what message would you have for the party not to do that?
Yeah, the truth is I don't have any inside information. You probably have more inside information than me. I was speaking in terms of speaking to senior figures of Sinn Féin, I was speaking to Eoin O'Brien last week, but not about the presidency. I didn't ask him about it, so I don't know how they are feeling, to be honest, apart from what I read. I think there's two sides of it. One is, just to be clear, like, Sinn Féin as a party, just as People for Profit as a party, has every right to consider themselves what they're going to do, to have their own internal processes, and unlike People for Profit, they have the numbers whereby if they want to nominate a candidate, they can do so, and that's absolutely their right to do so. And if they do choose to go down that road, I obviously would hope that there will be a very strong transfer between a Sinn Féin candidate and Catherine Connolly, and so that whoever was highest among those would maximise their chance of beating, presumably, Heather Humphreys. But I think, not as a Sinn Féin member, but I think this is a big opportunity for the left as a whole, including Sinn Féin, to get behind someone who is an independent, who isn't coming from any one of the parties, to show that we can work together in that way, to have the momentum in an election. Like, I think the election itself is very important. It's not just the winning of the presidency. Having an election where we're working together on the ground, on a national level, I think has the potential to energise people in the way like the New Popular Front in France, which brought together people on the left, energised people outside of those parties. People see left parties coming together, and that gives people who are cynical, who have left-wing outlook but are cynical about parties, don't know why they get involved or whatever, to get involved in that campaign. So I think there's a lot there to be won in terms of, I think the position itself is very important. I think the fact that we have had Fine Gael in power now for a couple of decades. Throughout most of that time, Michael D. Higgins has been an important, different voice in a position of authority in the Irish state. So to continue to have someone in that mould who's going to resist the drive to get rid of neutrality. I mean, I think if Catherine Connolly wins, it's difficult for the government to push through in getting rid of the triple lock. They still may do it, but it will be a real mandate from people to keep the triple lock. And so having that, but I also think it will set us up very, very well for the general election, where we want to see a united, coordinated campaign of the left, committed to kicking out Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, not putting them back in power, and offering the opportunity of a left government. So I personally think there's a lot for Sinn Féin as well as the rest of the left in getting behind a Catherine Connolly campaign, but we respect their decision, whatever they make.
And even though it's meant to be an apolitical role and ceremonial role, you think a left voice is needed in Northern Route Front?
Yes, I mean, look, I've never gone along with the idea that it is an apolitical role. I think every person who has been president in the country so far was a member of a political party right up until the point of running for the elections. Catherine Connolly actually, I think, would be, I mean, she was a member of a political party quite a while ago, but is an independent TD now, might be the first president not to have been a recent member of a political party. But it is a political role. It's not the same political role as being the Taoiseach. You have a different role in the constitutional architecture of the state. But the elections are inherently political. The election is going to be about, are people happy with the direction the country is going? Are people happy with the government? That's inevitably going to be a big part of what the election is going to be about. And I would hope that if Catherine Connolly is elected, she will continue to play a political role, like Michael D. Higgins has played a political role in speaking out in support of neutrality, and speaking out against genocide, and speaking out about the housing catastrophe. And I think opinion polls reflect this, the majority of the public are happy with Michael D. Higgins having that sort of approach, and would like a president who continues to some degree in that vein.